Welcome to another episode of the Mind of George show, where I pretend to have a radio voice on a Free for All Friday before I interview a new dear friend of mine. And I say friend because I feel like I found my long lost brother in a different country that thinks like I think, feels like I feel, values the same things that I do, and quite frankly, actually gives a shit about people when it comes to marketing and help people achieve their goals and achieve their business. So I have my friend Jonathan. And I should have known, like right from the beginning, he calls it no fluff marketing. He takes the same approach as me. And quite frankly, we rag on the same crap that happens across the industry. And I love connecting with people that put the heart back in marketing, but not from some spammy, scammy, let me snake oil you, but like, hey, this is how you apply it to a business and actually build and run a profitable business to have a bigger impact. And so without further ado, I would love to welcome my friend Jonathan Dussault. So Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, buddy. It is an absolute pleasure and a privilege to be on here. I'm very much in my happy place. Thanks, man.
Yeah, man, I love it. I always hate interviewing people with accents because I always lose the cool points like right off the bat, and you're gonna take over the episode. So I'm okay with that though. I'm coming to terms that I either have to go to acting school or I just have to accept that this is my voice and I didn't grow up in another country.
I was just thinking as you were introducing me there, if this marketing gig, well, I know you're sort of immersed in the entrepreneurial world and you're bloody good at it, so it will work out. But if it never worked out in a different parallel universe, you could always be engaged in authentic stand-up comedy, I think.
Yeah, I like it. I think I have gotten some feedback because you and I laugh about some of these videos I do, this deadpan delivery, the amount of people that think I'm serious and I can sell it and deliver it. It's actually quite alarming to me. And I was like, oh, but I've just seen so much shit in our industry. I'm just pretending to be like them all day. So maybe I really am like a good actor. Like I'm just acting out what they do. So that's enough about
Right.
me. I do want to get into you. And so in typical George fashion, you've listened to the podcast. You probably know what the first question is, but I think it provides so much insight and context. And you're somebody who's been in this game for a long time. You've been working online for 12 years. I think you've generated over 500,000 appointment bookings just for health people, which is mind blowing, and that's an amazing industry. So you've had some experience. You've been in SaaS companies, you have some membership stuff, all of it. And I would venture to say you probably have some really deep keels when it comes to lessons and things that you'll never do again. And so what I want to know is, what is the biggest mistake that you've ever made in business? What did you learn from it? And then how do you operate from this point forward to prevent that from happening?
That's a great question out the bat. And yeah, I did know that question was coming. I just want to prefix this a little bit because I'm a massive fan of collaboration with the right people. There's a caveat there, with the right people, because one of the biggest mistakes I made in business. I'm a very enthusiastic and I'm very optimistic and a sociable type of guy, as you know. But when I first started out back in, it was my second company, 2009, the Wellness Directory. I was launching that. A live public event. I spent 6 months rallying speakers up for the event. And these were people I knew that I trusted and thought, yeah, they would do a great job providing value to the audience there. And obviously the highlight would be the fact that I was launching this kick-ass online health directory to all these practitioners and therapists and light workers, you name it. And what actually transpired was we had seven main speakers and myself, and it was an all-day event. And at the end, when people were supposed to sign up for the actual software and the advertising within the directory, no one signed up. No one had a clue because everyone was buzzing. Everyone loved the event, but it was info overload. There was too much. There was too much cooks spoiling the marketing broth that day, and because it was a great lesson for me that if you give people too many options, it doesn't matter how good they are, brother. If you give them too many options, they'll take. So that was my launch that I've been working on for 18 months, and it launched badly.
So in that launch, and this is something I've talked. I actually don't think I've talked about this on a podcast yet, and this might be a thread to really pull, because I know this is something that you've had experience with, and you've done this with clients as well. But two things that I really want to unpack from your brain, because I appreciate the way that you see these things, is first is what you pretexted that with contextually of, collaborations, believing in collaborations. And one thing is, for me, what I feel like makes a collaboration quality or effective is handled expectations and tight containers. And so like clear communication, things along those lines. And so I'd love to hear kind of how you do that, because you've worked in a lot of spaces and you're one of those people that's very collaborative. Like, you love people. And I love that
Yeah.
about you. And I think the dark side of the loving people thing is that it's really easy for a lot of us to either feel taken advantage of, feel jaded, collect evidence or resentment, or get taken advantage of. And I think most of it real boils down to communication. So I'll unpack that one. So I would love to hear your thoughts on
Okay.
that.
Yeah. Look, where do you start? I mean, I think when you're naturally an enthusiastic person
Mm-hmm.
and you build up other people's energy that you feel that you're aligned with, you naturally just want to do things all the time and jump in and to projects together. And you trust people, and look, the reality is they probably are trustworthy people as well. But they're just, until you actually start working with collaborators and actually doing the nitty gritty in the trenches stuff, you've got no idea with kind of who you're actually working with. I kind of liken it a little bit to going out on a date and meeting this girl that you've been dating for months out, and it's all been lovely and beautiful, and and you just can't wait to move in together. But when you move in together, it's an absolute nightmare. and I kind of feel this is a similar kind of way with collaboration. So I really appreciate that question, because I've changed my whole approach from the way I used to do it. Now I'll reach out, I'll do certain calls, we'll work on a project together, we'll exchange some clients together or whatever, but we'll do some stuff together before we do any big joint venture type projects together, rather than just going, I really like you, I really like what you stand for, let's jump in.
You mean you actually work on building a relationship and not falling in love with the dopamine from the quote unquote relationship?
That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really, really important, right? Like, I learned this lesson a long time ago when I was in the military. Like, I had this illusion at 20 years old of who I was as a
Yeah.
man, right? 20, right? Because I was really seasoned, came from a broken home, made it through boot camp. I had that inflated ego. I'm like this robot killing machine. And then I'll never forget the first time I saw a bomb went off. And I was like, I am nowhere near where I thought I was. Like, I am not a tough guy. Like, I am. But then
Yeah.
when you get put under pressure, what you lose is you lose the veils, you lose the masks, right? And masks aren't a bad thing, veils aren't a bad thing, right? But when you're going to go into business with somebody, whether you're doing joint venture partnerships, whether you're doing influencer partnerships, right? Whether you're doing co-branded stuff, creating content together, even doing interviews like this, I think it's really, really imperative that you get to know somebody at their core. And that can only come with like time and touch points and relationships. And like, I don't know, like for me, I think we did that, right? Like, we bumped into each other because somebody tagged me. I think Benetti tagged me or somebody tagged me. And then you and I started DMing, and then I saw your content. I was like, God, I really love what this dude's posting. Then I started engaging on your content, and then you engaged on mine, and then we were audio messaging, and then we set up a video call, and we took that call, and then it led to you telling me about your program, and then me reviewing it and introducing some of my people to you. And then I was like, hey, will you come on the podcast? Like, it probably took a month
Yeah.
to get here.
Yeah.
And I was like, because the way that I think about it, right? I'm like, okay, if something happened right now and my world ended and I just died in this moment, could you continue run the podcast and me trust what you'd say and then publish it anyways? And I'm like, yeah. And that's kind of how I go about like having guests on here. But I think you really need to know people. And
Kudos. I love it.
I do have a question for you in that though, because I think there's a lot of gold in there, and I'm already talking way too much on this podcast. But this gets me excited because I
No,
don't.
but can I just say
Yeah,
as well about you saying it was a month, but that whole relationship was effortless as well.
effortless.
When you connect with the right people, it's not, oh, I've got to send an audio here. Oh, I've got to follow up here. I've got to, really make the effort here.
Yep.
It's just the whole process is effortless.
Totally. Well, like, I think
Right,
there's
and
like, I go on my Facebook right now and there's 17 unread messages that I've opened and marked as unread again because I'm not ready to respond to them. And then
Yeah.
basically you can tell if like we're in a good space. Like if I'm like, yeah, responding right away, it feels easy. It doesn't feel like a chore. Like it doesn't feel transactional. It just feels authentic. And
Yeah.
I think there was even one point you sent me an audio message like, "Hey man, I don't have time to listen to the audio right now. I'll get back to you." And like just being authentic. But yeah, it feels really easy. But I actually think that's a good thread to pull on this one. With that though, you've been in this game for a long time. You're about collaboration. You're about knowing people.
Yeah.
I think something you said is really imperative is that you get to figure out who people are, but also how do you look at being able to say no and understanding, when it's a good time to say yes, when it's a good time to say no, because, relationships happen for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And, your barometer is typically pretty accurate. So, like, how do you navigate that? Because there's a lot of times I've said no, but it was like a no right now, not a no forever. But
Yeah.
how do you go about weighing that? Because there's umpteen opportunities to do JV partnerships, to work with
Oh,
influencers,
yeah.
to have somebody buy my product or somebody do a shout out, but there's only
Yeah.
certain ones that'll actually help you. And so how do you navigate that?
Mate, the same way you navigate it, it's called gut intuition.
Mm,
And, people either align with our core values and we either have a good feeling in our gut and, we feel like we energetically align with that person or not. I mean, I get messages all the time from people and they sound nice and, and then they've got a product opportunity and that's great as well. But I always come back to that and I go, well, look, if I wanted to work with that person, would they be the messages that I would have wanted to receive from that person? Those first 3 or 4 messages, would that be the ideal person that I'd want to work with? So I kind of try and look at it a bit sort of retrospectively in the present, and just align with my gut feeling as well. Yeah,
wow, that's I love that. I love that, right? Because that in that moment, like they're reaching out to you cold and like, hey man, love to connect. What do you do? That's my favorite one,
yep,
by the way. I'm like,
yep.
you added me as a fucking friend. What are you asking me what I do for, right?
I love that one.
And then,
Yeah, yeah,
but then,
beautiful.
what's funny is I'll respond with that. And I've said this before. I'm like, well, you added me as a friend, right? So I'm not
Yeah,
going to answer that question, but why did you want to connect? And typically the answer to that one determines where I go. And I've had quite a
right.
few of them be like, you know what? You just showed up in the recommended friends, and we have a ton of mutual friends that I have no clue what you do, but I'm super interested. I'm like, I can respond to that. Like, you were
Yeah,
honest with me. Like, and then I love the fluffy ones. Well, I saw that you were into. I'm like, that's not me, man. Like, I didn't got forex, no Bitcoin, no, none of that stuff here. But
yeah,
I
yeah,
think that's a really, really good understanding
yeah.
to have and to carry forward. Like when we think about collaborations, we think about business, everything we're doing is collaboration. Everything. Collaboration with team,
Totally, man.
influencers, even our customers. Like we
Yeah,
collaborate with our customers every day. And
totally,
so
totally.
I love it, and I'm summarizing, but I love the fact that you look at it through this barometer lens of like, God, if I was working with this person, would I want that message to go out? Or would I want them to talk to my team like that? Or to respond to a customer service inquiry like that? Or get interviewed on a podcast like that? And not
And
that
on that
it's,
note,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, like on that note, while you're saying that, it just popped into my mind. I have to get this out of my head, otherwise it's gone like Harry Houdini. But it's when you talk about collaboration. I used to collaborate with everyone. Now I've got probably a core team of 12 collaborators, joint
Mm-hmm.
venture partners. Like if this was me 12 years ago, that would probably be triple that,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd be wasting a lot of energy and time and spinning a lot of wheels working out who's the best person to approach. But I want to just say, because we do have collaborators everywhere, like you eloquently put, buddy, and I think a lot of it comes down to, are people talking to you like a business, or are they talking to you like a human being first and foremost? And that for me is imperative. And I think about some of the partners that I've accrued just in the last 12 months. One of the partners over in California, guy called Cody, we connected on Facebook. The guy sent me 4 audio messages, just telling me what he does, talking about what I do. Wasn't asking for anything, but just without want, just introducing himself and connecting on that human level. And when someone does that, they stand out like a beautiful sore thumb, and you can't help but go, you know what, this man is one cool dude. I've got to send some audios back. And it was similar connection with ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, I absolutely I absolutely love that. And you know what's funny is like we talk about, and you and I see the world very similarly when it comes to relationships, when it comes to all of this. And, for everybody listening, like I'm not like, oh, you're damned if you send a message like, hey, what do you do? But I look at it more of like a missed opportunity to improve upon the silence, right? Like
Yeah,
like you just said, like we unfortunately live in a world, and and the jury's out on like what I blame in this, right? But we live in a world where transactions tend to be the currency, right? How many
yeah,
eyeballs can I get? How many
yeah,
touch points can I get? Whether they're negative or positive, it's like, I'll send 100 messages out today to get one response that one might close. And my brain is
yeah.
always like, but what about the 99 no's and what that's going to do to like your reputation, to, how people talk about you when you come up in a conversation. And so, yeah, it's really refreshing. It's really refreshing to hear. But, I went through a similar thing. So I'd love to hear your process on this because you said it. But, for me, 4 years ago as an entrepreneur, my vision of an entrepreneur is how can I get more people to know who I am and like me with as much width and minimum depth as required. And so I was like, I'm collaborating with everybody. I own this. I'm consulting this. I
Yeah.
and it was like I had a Rolodex of bullshit to spit at you, and you asked me what I did. Uh,
Yeah.
and all of it lacked everything. But you said, like a couple years ago, you would have been, in 36 or 48 or 72, and you were collecting quantity, but
Yeah.
now you collect quality. So, like, first off, like, what was the hardest part about that transition, and how did you go about it? And like now, how do you measure where that fits in to make sure that it's hitting your KPIs?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll kind of answer that sort of back to front a little bit. I mean,
Yeah.
start with the successful JVs that have, it's very clear, it's very structured, the expectations are very clear on, what we're going to do for each other. Yeah, there's a little bit of paperwork involved, but it's minimum. And it's kind of like, well, our core values align. We're going to do this. Love it if you can help us with this, buy gifts for each other and all that sort of lovely stuff. And, that's the difference between energetically aligning with a successful JV partner as opposed to just aligning with a name, or just focusing on quantity over quality here. And now going back to your other question about sort of how did I sort of shrink that number? Well, that just came through just mistakes and
Mm.
spending my time in the wrong place, spending my energy in the wrong place, trying to align with people that weren't a good fit for me. And interestingly, you asked that, brother, because 12 months ago, I sort of set out on this journey and I scrapped all my business connections, scrapped all of them, because all I was doing was spinning my wheels, going to, different people, wasting time, wasting energy on, projects that weren't working out as well as they should have done. And so I scrapped all my connections and I just started again. I just literally started again, and just because I accepted that part of that was me as well,
Mm-hmm.
and how I was relating to people and how I was showing up, and how that initial kind of relationship, wasn't working. So, yeah, I think again, it comes down to what you asked at the start. You have to make those mistakes to kind of go, well, I either keep having more of this nonsense and BS, and we say nice things to each other but get very little done, or I just reinvent actually what I really truly want and work with the people that I envisage that are going to help me get to where I need to.
Yeah, man. I think that that's pivotal. And so I've been through something similar, right? And
Yeah,
you did this. You were like, okay, cool. It sounds like what you did is like you're like, I gotta audit what's here, and you got to a point where you're like, okay, this is exhausting. I have no idea, and you were like clean slate, and then being very intentional. But I imagine that you went through a period, or I can only speak for myself, but I'm going to ask if this rings true because I would love your perspective
yeah,
on this. I did a similar thing. I deleted my phone number, changed my email, and then I went through a period of like, what the hell am I supposed to do with my time? And on paper, I know like, oh, I should write that email. I should launch this course. But my day was so filled with just attention or dopamine or validation or things along those lines. Like I went through, it felt like a detox. And
yeah.
then I was actually nervous on like bringing relationships in. And so I would love to hear your thoughts of like, once you did that, like what were you looking for? Did you do like an audit of like, okay, because it sounds like you did an audit and you're like, I'm starting scratch, right? Like a social media detox, a business connections detox. But then once you were through that though, what did you start to look for? Like how did you structure your day? What did you look like? Like and
Yep.
strategically, because I think it's really important because you are successful what you do and you manage a lot of relationships really, really well. But one of the fears I had was, well, if I get rid of all these relationships or if I'm not watering them, then I'm not going to make any money or succeed, even though on paper I wasn't making any money or succeeding with them in the first place.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Totally hear that. It's a big leap of faith, brother,
Mm,
to get rid of contacts that are not serving you. It's a bit like getting rid of friends, so-called friends that aren't serving you as well as, the person you are and the person you're becoming. But I think what I will say is it's a good soul cleanse, having a
yes.
good purge and, knocking them out. But in terms of like structuring the different structure, that's a really good question as well, mate, because I think at that point, was it sort of 12, 18 months? No, let me just think. Where are we? We're in 2020. Yeah, we
Yeah,
are.
I think so.
It was about 18 months ago. And yeah, totally restructured the way I was doing everything in business. And I wasn't at that time working on like 3-hour intensive blocks in my business. I'd read everything like The One Thing, the 12-hour work week, and, not the 12-hour
The
work week, the
12-hour
12,
work.
hold on, 4-hour work week, but the 12-week year by Brian Moran. And all of that stuff was sitting in there, but I still wasn't acting. So at that time, it was taking action on a lot of that, being more efficient and actually creating collaboration intensive work blocks as well. Because look, you get what you put your energy on. You
Hmm.
get the quality of what you get is proportional to the amount of energy you put into it. So if you're not going to really bother putting much into collaborations, you're not really going to bother showing up on camera, on lives, or from your Facebook group, or wherever it is, then you're just going to get this sort of so type kind of result. So I was actually putting 3-hour blocks in at least 3 times a week to build relationships with like-minded, similar core values, those types of people that just basically have a similar type audience, but they resonate with me on a human level. And a lot of it in the early days was just really jumping on calls and actually just kind of jamming what we're doing now, and talking about our visions and what we want to do in business, because I think we lose that. Like we forget about our actual core purpose. Let's not forget, our collaborators need to align with our core purpose and who we really are and what we really want. Look, I appreciate that not everyone knows that, but I do urge people to work on that, because that's the only way we're going to attract the type of people that are going to be valuable to us, and vice versa.
Yeah, I love that. What it sounds like is like you did this audit, you cleaned all this stuff out 18 months ago, and you had this like empty slate, and you're like, okay, cool. I know collaboration's powerful, right? But what I also know is that the 76 people I was hoarding potential with, right?
Yeah,
That's what it sounds like. That's something I did. Like we hoard potential to avoid the actualization of success, or like what we could be focusing on, because we're like, oh, this might go, or this might go, or this might go, and I'm like, there's a lot of, you might die today. There's a whole lot
yeah,
of like mites, and that's a lesson that I had to learn. But now what it sounds like is you came out and you're like, okay, cool. If I'm going to do this relationship thing, if I'm going to do this collaboration thing, I'm going to be intentional about it, right? And as our, my dear friend Ali Sharfin say, it's process,
yeah,
structure, routine, and it's no different. You have to water the plant that you plant, right? You have to attend to it. You have to care for it. And it sounds like you were intentional. You created these blocks and you're like, okay, 3 hours a week or 1 hour a week or 20 minutes a day, all I'm doing in that time is going to water the garden, right? I'm either going to plant a seed, I'm going to go ask them if I can eat one of their strawberries, or I'm going to water what I'm growing to help it realize its potential. And it sounds like it's paid off dividends.
yeah. But like you said, it's the word intention is
Yeah.
absolutely paramount there. You have to have that intention, otherwise you're just going to be kind of in that reactive sort of state rather than that proactive state, which is absolute essential to success in any business. And I actually set up I don't know if you've done the similar thing with your podcast, but I set up the No Fluff Marketing Show to be a branch of that sort of strategy side of thing you talked about, process structure strategy. So the strategy side was, No Fluff Marketing Show was part of that, to collaborate with people first and foremost, but also to obviously then provide value as well. So I don't know, was that similar type of thing that you did with the show? Or did you...
I started my show because my wife's like, you talk too much, and if you don't start talking more at work, this isn't going to work anymore, right?
right.
Like, I'd wanted to start a
Yeah.
podcast for 9 years, and Travis
Right.
Chappelle and I talked about this on an episode recently, and I was too busy collecting the fun stuff with doing it, right? Like buying the microphone instead of actually just doing it, like picking up my phone, pick up an audio thing. And so when the world went crazy, I was basically given an ultimatum by my team and my wife to hold me accountable to what I told them I wanted to do 9 years ago. And so then I was
Right.
like, boom. And then I will say, though, like Brad Costanza and I, who will be coming on the show soon, talk about this a lot. Podcasts are one of the best tools in the world for creating connection, meeting people, serving them. And quite frankly, I've had a few people I've interviewed, and these interviews are not published, and they will never be published because how they are on one space versus when I get them interviewed are completely different, and that's fine, right? And I was like, hey, this just doesn't fit. Thanks for coming on the show. Let me know how I can support you. That episode is not going live. And now all of you listening are going to be driven nuts to know who it was I interviewed that didn't get published.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a marketing lesson from Jonathan and I on the Zygarnik effect. But yeah, I think it's really powerful, man. When you say intention, and actually I'm going to close this loop all the way back to the beginning of your biggest mistake, because what you're talking about in intention, like you created that space, then you realize like I'm going to fill this space. I'm going to be intentional about these relationships, what I build in my business, launching my podcast, which intention really just requires some level of clarity of where you want to go. But then you said the other mistake in the business was giving people way too many choices. And I think there's two sides to that coin. I think the first side is us creating way too many choices for our customers because we don't really know where we want them to go, or we don't really believe that we can deliver the results that are promised where we want them to go.
Yeah, it's good, man.
And so, for you, one of the mistakes you made was giving people too many choices. So, the answer of that, the inverse of that is obviously we'll give them one and a clear path, right? And so after that launch and after you learned that lesson, where did you dive into that to realize, okay, like obviously you learned some big lessons around that, right? And then what was the adjustment and the pivot made? And then where did you go from that point to figure out like the next steps?
Yeah. Just before I go into that, I just want to say, two sides there. You're right, because, and especially that latter one, you don't think you can deliver those results. Well, I don't know if it was so much that, but if I look back now retrospectively, again, there was a deep insecurity about the fact that I could do it on my own and be enough with one service, one advertising service in the health industry. So what did I do? Let's create a value bonanza instead and get so many others in. So, and then completely dilute the whole message of the day. So I'm totally with you, but there's an insecurity attached to that second one, which is absolutely fantastic. You nailed it. But what I did differently from them was, well, what I'd hope most people would do. Okay, well, it didn't work having lots of speakers in. Now I do it myself. And what fell out from that afterwards was a period of 5 years. I ran about 20 of my own marketing business workshops over here in New Zealand, up and down the country, and they were way more successful. And but it was a great lesson because it taught me that actually, no, you can actually provide the value that those other speakers would offering on the day, and you can do it better. And how many times do we see that in business where we go, oh, I don't know, they can probably do it better, or I don't think I'm quite enough to, do that, so I'll leave that out. And, the majority of the time and the audience that you're serving, more than enough. You have more than enough skill and experience and value to really provide them. And so it was a really good lesson, buddy. And from there, that went from strength to strength.
Yeah. Have you ever listened to the book or read the book Winning Through Intimidation by Robert Ringer?
Winning through intimidation. Let me go through my book
No, like,
Rolodex.
well,
I
here,
don't think I have. I don't
I
think
just
so.
started. I just started it today. Somebody recommended it, and it's funny because I read the title. I'm like, I am not reading this book. I am not. And in the intro of the book, he talks about how nobody would buy the book because of that, but it really talks about not
Oh,
believing the insecurities and the
yeah.
stories, and the winning through intimidation is knowing that you're going to be intimidated by insecurity in the world, but yet win and work through it anyways. And it's this really powerful concept.
Uh,
The way that he positioned it is really good. Um,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
and so yeah, I think with what you're saying, and the latter for me, like I don't know what to call that insecurity. It's come up a lot, right? I've had imposter syndrome galore. I've had
Yep.
a who am I to say? I've had the well, I created all those results for other people, but not myself. Like it's
Yeah.
you know what?
Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah.
All of us have it, and it's just a different fucking wrapping paper, like suit that fits. And all of us just need to tell the shit, sit the shit down, and like shut up, right?
Yeah.
And you nailed it.
Yeah.
Like what you did is you went through this time, you did a social audit, you had this launch that didn't work, you came out and you're like, all right, cool. I'm in charge of my success, right? And if I'm intentional about my time and I pick away at it over and over and over again, and I keep choosing to learn and to iterate and to learn and to iterate, you end up where you are now.
Yeah.
And what I love too,
Yeah.
and I catch this in how you talk a lot. I catch this in how you talk. It sounds like you have a lot of grace for yourself now, right? And I think grace as an entrepreneur is, success isn't like, oh, I nailed this home run. Success is how many times am I willing to try until I figure out the winning combination,
Spot on, buddy.
right?
Yeah.
And that's a lesson that I haven't wanted to learn nor accept because I'm like, don't you know who I am? Like, come on. I do it better than her, but why can't I just have a $28 million launch on day one with no audience and no product and no results, right? Like, I've had those
Yeah.
actual thoughts and fears. But I love
Yeah.
that, like, and the name that you have, by the way, with No Fluff Marketing is, so perfect
I was
with
born
all,
out of frustration.
with all of it, right? Because,
Yeah.
you know,
Totally,
what,
man.
what
You
I,
know who I'm talking about as well.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
there's
where
a pool of them out
I'm not ready to lynch the entire industry by name yet, but they're starting to come out piece by piece. They're starting to get
there.
dropped here.
We could
Um,
just telepathically do it through the
yeah,
screen.
I think if Jonathan and I just pause in silence and I just say scammy, slimy, incongruent marketing, and we sit here quietly, you'll figure out who we're talking about.
Yeah. Hypey,
The
noisy.
list is still
Yeah.
going, right? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
long.
Yeah.
It's long, right?
Yeah.
So pick your poison. But what I love about that is so you have this, you have the same thing. You are on this thing. You realize that you can do it just as good. And what I think is powerful about that, like all of us, like there's original stuff, right? But not that much. Like I was a
Yeah.
food blogger and everyone's like, like I made up that. I'm like, you didn't make up banana bread. Somebody made that shit up 2,000 years ago. Stop claiming you invented banana bread. We're just literally putting our spin on somebody else's creation. But I think that's what's powerful and what I love about you
That is
is
powerful. Yeah.
you have a heart. You have this concept. You understand marketing, you understand humans, and then you apply your no fluff approach to it, right? And you help people. You really were like out of frustration, no more bullshit. Cut the fluff. I don't care about how many trials you can get. I don't care about, how many eyeballs you can get. Like what I care about and what I think you embody is like how many results can you create?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's
And how
some
many lives can you actually change? Like
yeah.
actually, as not as a statistic or a data point. Actually, how many people can you actually improve? And as a person and as a business.
Yeah, well,
Um.
well, that's what I wanted to ask you a question about because you help a lot of companies, a lot of entrepreneurs with
Yeah.
memberships, with helping serve their clients, with whatever. And in my world, I've seen one of two, when I help companies like that, I see one of two options. Either nobody's buying the membership or everybody's buying and canceling.
Yeah.
And so this is your area. And so
Yeah.
when we think about this, like when we think about businesses in particular that serve customers, like what are the biggest mistakes that you see them make when it comes to everything we've been talking about, but in this delivering results, making a difference in their life? What are the biggest mistakes that you see and like how do you recommend people go about either auditing it, fixing it, plugging it, or doing something to make sure that we're not burning bridges and we're delivering on our promises?
Totally, brother. The first one is real simple. It's people are just guessing what they think their audience wants. They're
Mm.
guessing. It's kind of like that. Well, this sounds cool. This person's doing it. Let's just do a version of that, and let's get rich just like the other person. It's absolute BS, and you and I both know that. But your audience has total different set of needs, different situation, different emotional needs, different everything, different stages of their business and life journey. So the only way to know exactly what your audience needs right now is to ask them. And so many people don't do it. It's incredible. People just set this up thinking it's a great idea, or they'll do the next worst mistake, which is ask a handful of people, and they tend to be friends, or they tend to be their best type of client that's going to say yes anyway. That's lovely, go for it. And then they spend the next 6-12 months procrastinating over a service or membership or a program or whatever it is, and setting something up that their audience doesn't even probably want or need at that point.
What do you feel like the biggest reason people don't ask the right people for feedback is?
Another really good question, buddy. I know you'd ask lots of good questions today. That's what your show's all about, isn't it? The quality of the questions.
Yeah.
I I think a lot of it is down to the fact that there is this kind of ego in business, in
Mm-hmm.
that we know what our audience wants. There is a part of that, and we're the expert. We know what our audience wants, kind of nonsense. The other part of it is that people just don't like to ask questions. And you see that, and certainly with a lot of clients I work with, and I ask them, yeah, have you sent out formulated email type thing, to get some real quality feedback from your service, your program, or what you're doing right now? Oh, no, I haven't thought about that. Well, why not? That should be the first thing you should be doing after, like, literally as soon as someone praises you, or as soon as someone says this is really cool, or a light bulb goes off, or wow, this is the best thing I've tried this year. That is a feedback moment that you have to be asking for. And in fact, even better than that, it should be automated into some sort of sequence that goes out to clients. Like product companies do that well, but service-based businesses don't do it well. So I think there is this kind of fear or reluctance to ask people, what perceived uncomfortable questions, which actually people love to give anyway. They love to give feedback.
Yeah, I asked you this intentionally because this is something I've worked through a lot, right? And it's like funny because you can hear all the hyperbole of like quote unquote success coaches, but if you listen to what's underneath it, what it is over and over again is like I got feedback, I got feedback, I got feedback, I got feedback, I improved, I
Right.
iterated, I improved, I iterated. And
Totally, man.
something I struggled with immensely for a long time, and I feel like you might have as well, especially given that launch, was that I looked at the feedback like it was who I was, not how I played the play.
Yeah.
And I think I've spent a lot of time being able to now differentiate between how I played the entire game versus how I played for 1 second in the game.
Right. Love it.
And I've equated it, I'm not even a sports fan, but like I equated it to like, American football or basketball, right? Like if I miss a shot, I don't quit. I'm not like,
Yeah.
oh, don't tell me I missed the shot. Like I know I missed the damn shot. How can I not miss it again?
That's penciled in.
Yeah, and I but I
Pre-planned
think
to miss.
I think it's so imperative because what you and I talk about so much when it comes to business and marketing is relationships, right? And the success of our customer is directly tied to the depth of the relationship we create to both understand where they are, where they need to go, and then how we're going to get them there will they feel safe enough to execute on that vision.
Yeah.
And I've fallen into the trap you just described where it's like, well, I know I'm the best. I did this with this company. And like even in the last couple of weeks, I've had more momentum and clarity in my business by being like, I have no fucking clue. Can you help me?
That's beautiful, isn't it? When you
Uh,
can just
Well,
submit
like,
to it.
yeah, well,
That's
like I've asked you, and I'm like, hey, can you give me feedback? Like, what do you think about this? And like, I have like 8 coaches in my corner every day. Like, and yeah, there's plenty of times I don't open their audio messages because I don't want the feedback, and then I open it, and they're like, you're amazing. I'm like, oh, I should have opened this sooner, right? Um,
yeah.
But I think it's really, really important because what you talked about is like the first step for everybody when it comes to marketing being effective, or your business or your service or your product, is being in a relationship with your customers.
It is interesting, isn't it? Because the irony is we're empowering them to give us feedback and building that connection by doing it as well. So it's
Yeah,
it's
it's like, and
tactical.
what's nuts to me is I just don't understand why people think that like you shouldn't, like somehow you're going to benefit by not having a relationship with a customer, potential customer, or like, yeah, they're going to go recommend me to all their friends because I ignored their emails, or I told them they were wrong when they told me my product didn't work, or that it was their fault. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
mind blowing. So first thing you'd recommend
yeah,
is ask. So like deepen your relationship with your customers. Ask them open ended questions. Ask for feedback. Like
exactly.
share things before they launch with them, and get their direct feedback. Ask them what the experience is like. How could you make it easier for them? Like those are things that are
Totally.
there. And
Yeah,
then that's number one. Then what's the next step for people? They ask, they get really clear, really connected, they get that feedback, right? And then it's
yeah,
like, all right, cool, Jonathan. They told me these 74 things that I have to do. And I'm like, I can't do all 74 of these at once.
yeah, yeah. Completely, buddy. Completely. I think what you've got to do is you've got to see patterns, trends. Look for that in the responses, and I think you've got to be very clever with the way that you ask the questions as well, because you like open-ended, sure, but some close-ended there as well, just to really make sure that when you get your chart from all the data you've got back, you can actually see the trend and where to follow. So yeah, deciphering the data is definitely a challenge. So the quality of the question is very important there. If we're just talking about bringing a new product or program to market, if it's getting testimonials from people, that's really easy. I've got 4 proven fantastic questions that can go out to people and generate a absolutely world class video monial.
Do you know what? Do you
That,
know what
that,
those are off the top of your head?
it's just really taking them through the before, during, and after journey. It's like, what would have stopped you, from using this type of product or service before? What was the one thing that has really impacted your business and life, and how then has what changes have you seen from that? And how has that emotionally made you feel, and why? And then just, would you recommend us? Well, obviously be a yes, but would you recommend us to other services? Now you put that in a video format, but that's what people are looking for. They're looking for that journey, aren't they? Which you're a master at, is they're looking for that before, during, after journey. And as soon as they get that, and it ticks all those objections in their head, the internal dialogue that's going through people's head when they're on a website, oh yeah, but that video does the job. So again, it's strategic, structural. Make our lives easier. But yeah, so we get the feedback for the program, buddy, and then we've got something to work with. Right now, we're in beta. Well, beta. We're actually doing a pilot run of our own all-in-one website, landing page, and course builder software here at OBA. We feel it's going to be a real healthy addition to the e-learning space as it is right now, because there's a lot of fantastic courses, course software out there. They do a great job, don't get me wrong, but there aren't many that do it well with the whole marketing and the whole holistic type landing page tools, ease of use, course building software, and that sort of stuff with a community. So we're really excited for that, buddy. But the reason I brought that up is to sort of, because we're going through that pilot run process. So we've been doing that now for 7 weeks. We didn't just create a piece of software and launch it out there and go, hey, pay us half price, and you get a great deal because you're one of our first 10 users or whatever, and then for them to come back a month later and go, oh, this didn't work for me, now price really isn't important. So we've had like about 50 users go through over 7 weeks. All we've done is we've set up a real intimate Facebook support group with myself and my business partner here, and we've just been onto them basically twice a week, say, how's it going? Do you need any support? What have you noticed? What's working well? What's not working? And all of that is just invaluable kind of feedback, qualitative data that we can actually use then when we do launch at the end of this month, finally, And we can be 95%, because you're never 100%, but 95% confident that the launch is going to go well and there's going to be people that are going to actually, enjoy using it.
And I'm gonna make a sweeping assumption here, but I think it's
Yep,
probably there. When you say confidence, I think it's really easy, for entrepreneurs, business owners to stay stuck for too long because they want more evidence that it's going to work. But when you say confidence, I think and my sweeping assumption is that you mean confidence in that you're going to be able to get a person to their after state and then improve upon the process or the software as you go.
exactly. Yeah.
Right? Like,
Uh,
yeah. Because like I think there's so much to be learned about entrepreneurship just through SaaS companies alone, or for those like SaaS as software as a service. But like tech iterations, the agile model, software services, things like that. Like
yeah.
the iPhone, for an example, like I would never use an original iPhone, but I will sure as shit use the one I have now, and I did use that one because it gave me ease of use and simplicity. But then they iterate and they iterate and they iterate, and I think that that's one of the biggest lessons we can learn from SaaS companies that you do. Like talking about this, like you just said it, like you're offering a solution right now, Course Commander. It's a website builder. I think it's a landing page builder. What was it? Oh, and Course Builder, all in one,
Yep.
right? And so you're like, I have this idea. You've been on all the platforms. They exist. You're like, oh yeah, here it is. And then you build it, and then you're like, hey, can we show you? What does this look like? How does this feel? What could we do differently? Has this worked for you? Are there any sticking points? And then you iterate and you get to a point where it sounds like you're confident that the end user or your ideal customer could achieve the desired results. Maybe not perfectly, but they could achieve it pretty
Yep.
close. Then you launch and then you use that money to fund and iterate and continue to research
Yep.
that platform.
Yeah, beautifully articulated, brother. And
Well,
that's exactly what it is.
Well,
Yeah,
and I
you're just
think
putting
too, and
money back in.
the reason I say that is because like when you think about a course, when you think about a physical product, when you think about a digital product, even if you think about a webinar, I think we should look at them the same way,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
And that's it. Your SaaS are a great, like you said, it's a great example, where business doesn't really connect with human, isn't it? Because you've used so many SaaS products. We've spent probably hundreds of thousands of marketing dollars on SaaS products where we've just felt like another number or statistic. We haven't used the software to its full potential, and we've kind of come away feeling a little bit blur, because we didn't really get any value we didn't get any education, we didn't get any sort of customer touch points, or we didn't actually feel like we were a customer in a kind of service to business type scenario. So there is I feel there's a great opportunity, and that kind of knocks down to memberships as well for service-based
Mm-hmm.
businesses right now, to do it differently, do it better, be more intimate with those lower ticket type customers, that you can nurture into higher ticket customers. Or if you're not wanting to nurture customers, then just pivoting, increasing your revenue each month just by amalgamating the existing resources that you've got and having a leverageable online membership product that existing customers would happily pay for right now.
Well,
There's
yeah,
so much opportunity there.
yeah, and well, I think there's a ton of opportunity. So let's go back because I think this is important.
Yeah.
There's a ton of opportunity. I think 99% of business owners, entrepreneurs, or people that have a product or a service could benefit from having a membership, right? But what
Mm.
I think is really important is to understand that that membership has to serve a purpose, and it's not a 1 day purpose or a 1 month purpose, right? So like when you think about that, you have a lot of experience here. What are the mistakes that people make, and what should they really focus on? Like if they want to launch a membership platform, or if they have one and they want to tweak it, like where do you see the biggest fall off? And then how do you improve upon that so that they can serve their customer and then serve their business to make it bigger?
Great question, buddy. Great question. It's a unique blend of automation and human interaction, which makes up the best type of membership experience. So, biggest kind of mistake that a lot of businesses will make is they'll go, okay, great, I'll just chuck in a load of templates, couple of videos, and just offer this at 197 a month to existing customers, and everyone will be happy and they'll keep paying me. No, that doesn't work. It doesn't cut it. What we should be thinking about is, okay, well, how can I create kind of a low level type coaching, not with you doing it so much in a one-to-one capacity, but in a one-to-many capacity for that $197 membership. So absolutely have the PDF templates and have the video resources and software if you've got it that customers wouldn't be able to access elsewhere. But at the same time, you have to have that human input as well. So there has to be some type of community around that. And if there's no community, people aren't going to stay, because people stay for the community, but they sign up for the products. So if you're looking at your customer lifetime value, you're looking at probably 3 months or less if you haven't got that community on average.
I think first, thank you for making that point. And I think one of the distinctions that I've learned, especially when it comes to membership and service-based models, is that it's really easy to get disillusioned that they're buying for you or that you're the answer.
Yeah.
And the truth is that if that thought process is there, like, oh, they're buying for access to me or they're buying for this, then you're going to lose the game, because the solution has to be agnostic of you. There has to be a plan, a protocol, a journey, and then you get them in and you introduce community for accountability to get momentum. And I love that, man. I absolutely love that. And so
totally.
When you think about that, right, there's so much when automations and so much with, interactions, and there's possibilities galore for, like, where should I be human? Where should I automate? Where should I have tech? Where should I have a person?
Yeah, right.
Like, it's really mind-blowing, and it happens.
There's a fair bit.
It's internally to the company, but it's also externally to the customer or the potential customer. Like, how much of my customer service should be bot-related versus human-related? How much of my social media posting should be automated versus human? How much am I responding? So, like, when you think about that, and I think this is a really good rabbit hole, is like, how do you prioritize which one? And, like, what are your determinants for, like, should this be automated? Should this be tech? Should this be human? Like, how do you see that? And then how do you decide and put that into practice?
I'm not a big fan of automated support tickets and the support, like bots and stuff like that, in terms when you've got paying customers. Because I think if they've put their credit card details down, you should have enough respect to at least have some human answering a question.
Yes.
And that can be someone that's knowledgeable, that is on $4 an hour in the Philippines. That's absolutely fine. That's a human experience. And you've got to absolutely leverage it, especially in the SaaS world. I get it. You don't have time to be sitting at the computer helping everyone. So absolutely, there should be some human experience. And within the community itself, there needs to be obviously people in that community, and you nailed that word, buddy, accountability. And that's what people stay for, the accountability, the community, the support aspects, where people can help each other as much as you can have your own input. But in terms of the automation side, that is really important as well. So, like with the Course Commander software, for example, one of the things that we have really kind of doubled down on is the ability to be able to email members when they haven't been logged in, say, for example, for like 2 weeks. An email goes out to them, say, hey, is everything all right? Do you need any help with anything? That should be automated, all of that sort of stuff, those email touch points. Also, if you're adding new content or keeping that should be an automated way to do that. So there is a good fine balance there, buddy. But the reality is, as I said, people will stay because of the human experience, because there's only so much content and value you can provide through content. Let's face it. No matter how good it is, it will wear off.
Totally. I mean, I think about the amount of products in my life that I complain about, but my endowment is too deep to change because I like the community, or I'm like, it's okay. They do all of this, right? Like, I make excuses for other companies so I don't have to change their product.
Nice.
And I think, but what that really is a testament to is how they make us feel, right? Like, these are companies I feel a part of. I feel like they've thrown a gift into my box to me. I feel like they respond to my emails every time. Like, it's my coffee shop. Like, my coffee shop's expensive, but there's like 21 employees and every one of them knows my name. And like, that's a big difference when people come to town and like, where should I get coffee? I'm like, go here. They're like, that's the furthest one away. I'm like, go. And I was like, if you go anywhere else, don't bring that shitty coffee in my house. Like, I fight for them hard.
Love it.
And then I was like, even today, I was like, you guys should give me a discount. I send you so much business, that's mind blowing. They're like, we know. And I was like, yeah, but don't change anything, right? But I think you nailed that, right? So what I'm hearing you say is like, and the core of all of this, Jonathan, when it really gets down to it for you, I think it's really, really simple, is that human is at the core of everything, and cut all the
Yeah.
bullshit away, right? And
Yeah.
like, let's be really, really clear. Be open,
Totally.
have a relationship with your customers. They give you feedback on something with no fluff that can help them. Figure out
Hmm.
how to fix it and then not let it happen again.
Hmm.
Automate the things that should be automated. Automate the customer journeys. Automate some of the accountability. Automate the things that help them achieve the desired result so you
Yeah.
can serve that one to many and create that semblance of safety. And
Yeah.
then ensure that you have the time or the capacity to be human. Customer support tickets, responding to emails, responding to social media,
Yeah.
because in my opinion, those are the instances that are going to keep them in momentum and help get them unstuck that an automation couldn't do.
Absolutely, brother. And those people that are helping on a human level, they need to buy into the culture of the
Mm-hmm.
business and the core values of the person behind it, pulling the strings. Because, like I say, I mean, touch points better than anyone.
Yeah.
Customer experience journey. You are the master when it comes to that. But what I see with a lot of businesses, a lot of small businesses, is they're trying to grow and scale without giving a shit about the customer journey. And that's
Yes.
the problem, and then they're coming across inauthentic, and almost kind of a bit scam worthy, because they're getting big, but the customer, it's like their revenue's going here, but their customer,
Yeah.
support and
Satisfaction
attention
as
is there.
everything is going down.
But it should be level.
Yeah.
As you get bigger, the customer support and attention should be level. It shouldn't go that way.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. The
but
one thing
it's
that
built
drives
on
me,
cards.
yeah, the one thing that drives me fucking nuts is when a company is built on relationships, right? They're like, hey, we're this SaaS company, we're this product, we're this service, we're this membership. You're a founding member. We love you. We love you. We'll always be here. And then as they get bigger, they decrease
Yeah.
the time in relationship. They're like, hey, you run a platform and you make money on our platform as an entrepreneur 7 days a week, but we're only going to have customer service Monday through Friday, 9 to 2 in India Central Time, even though you're in California. I'm like, do you know how much money I generate for you a month? Like, I can't. And like,
Yeah.
there's times where I've like waited 3 days to get
Yeah.
something tweaked that I didn't have access to tweak. But I think what you nailed there is that, like, it actually isn't building and scaling if you're not deepening the relationship with the customer. You're creating a liability. It's just not realized yet.
Yeah, yeah, you're creating a fake business in a sense, because
Yeah.
it's not a business built on happy customers. And if it's not a business built on happy customers, then you're just a time bomb.
That's
So
not a business.
it's not a business. It's not a business. It's just numbers. You're playing the numbers and the stats game, and it goes back to what we're saying about the hypey, noisy, inauthentic type businesses, marketers that across our social media feeds. They're doing that. They're playing the numbers game. They're building their business on their bottom line, the numbers, the users, but the customer support, and we all know who they are absolutely lacking to just incredibly poor. And
Yeah.
I can't emphasize that enough for
Yeah.
what they're
One
charging.
one of my friends, Gareth Everard, who launched Gareth launched the, I got his last name mixed up, I don't know why, launched the Get Keto device, had a razor company, Rockwell Razors, and he
Oh yeah,
said this amazing thing to me at one of our mastermind events. He said, "There's only two things you can innovate on. You can either innovate on product or customer experience." And he's like,
right.
and when you really get down to it, there's not much product innovation left, right? Like you said this, there's only a certain amount of information, only a certain amount of ways to do it. And so what you're
Yep.
left with is the one thing that only you can uniquely innovate on at a level that nobody else can do, which is customer experience, which is relationship based.
Yeah.
And it
Yep.
sounds like what you did with Course Commanders, you're like, okay, how can I remove all the distractions that prevent entrepreneurs from being in a relationship? So here, build your website. Here's your landing page. Here's your membership software. The automations are handled for you. Now spend all of your time building relationships with your customers, potential customers, and you do that through your community.
Yeah. Because that's what people remember, isn't it? They
Yeah.
remember that those actual human touch points, and it's like, it doesn't matter if it's software or a service or whatever. It can be anything. Program. It's coming across like you give a shit and actually asking questions and getting feedback. Because look, at the end of the day, customers, they're multi-customers. They have
Yeah.
their credit cards in many companies. They forget about you. It happens. What
Yeah.
you don't want is them to forget about you and for you to not have actually touch base with them, because every time, and this is one thing I also learned about the customer support side of things, is every time you get in touch with a customer and they've forgotten about you, that's actually a tick. That's like a tick of credibility, a stamp of credibility in your favor, because they go, oh my God, I forgot, but they didn't forget about me. And it's that kind of sort of mindset. And it's a bit like, when people think I'm emailing people too much. Well, actually, they're only going to see 1 or 5 emails probably that you send that week. But they'll kind of go, oh, they haven't forgotten about it. They're still emailing me really good content, even though I haven't been engaging in it.
Yeah.
It's the same type of principle.
I've never seen a customer get pissed. Like, I'm so mad that you helped me so much today.
Yeah. God.
Like, I'm
Why
so
do you send
bummed
all
that
good
you made me
content?
feel so good 5 times in the last week with your email. Like, I'm just so pissed that you added so much value to my life.
Yeah, you're a value thief. Well,
Yeah,
no,
I
no,
know.
no.
You want to know why people complain about email? When you send them shitty emails too much, right? And try to
Yeah,
transact and don't have that depth. And so, yeah, man,
yeah.
I love it. So Course Commander, is it live yet, or it might be live?
It's live at the end of this month, fella. We're going to be just working, like we're doing some iterations now, and with a lot of pilot users. If there's anyone watching this that wants to jump in and try it out, 2 weeks, and without want, just go and try it. We'll set up a mini Facebook support group, and if you're looking at a website landing page or course or anything like that, or would like to try an alternative to what you're using for any of the reasons that we've spoken about today, then absolutely be delighted to set you up with an account just for a couple of weeks and see what you think.
And what's the name of your Facebook group? 'Cause your Facebook group is fun. I have fun contributing into that group and calling the BS marketing up. But what's the name of your Facebook group?
Yeah, and I love your input, buddy. It's No Fluff Marketing for Awakened Entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
No Fluff Marketing.
So if you're not
Yeah.
awakened, I don't know why the hell you're listening to this podcast, because you are,
Well,
because you're here. But we
yeah,
do know fluff. So one of the things that I want to end with, because I really value your input and opinion. You have a lot of experience here. You've helped so many people, and you really give a shit. And I know it because we connect personally on a lot of different levels. But if you could leave anybody, like from this point forward, like I have customers, I have a service-based business, I'm going to be marketing for the rest of my life. Like, what is the one thing that no matter what they should focus on, and how can they focus on it that will improve upon their current game when it comes to marketing or relationship building? Like, what are some of the things that you would leave people with so we can make sure that we're improving upon the silence for them?
yeah. I would think, first of all, get clear on exactly what your vision is for your business and how that merges with your life, and look at, really dig deep, do the exercises, do the work to find out what your real purpose is and why you're doing what you're doing. Because when you've got that clarity, then other doors will open for you in terms of what type of platform you should be using, how you should be showing up, your own core values, how you want to jam with your audience, type of audience that you want to connect with. And also, like we talked about earlier today, brother, the collaborators that are going to align with your, energetically to help you get there. So that would be, just my simple kind of pearl to finish on.
I love it, man. I'm thinking back, like this felt like 2 minutes to me. I was like, oh, we talked about, I'm like, can't even remember a lot of it. I'm like, oh, we talked about, okay, yep, that's a good thing. Yep, that's a good thing. I have no idea what I'm going to put in the intro of this episode.
It always does.
Yeah,
It's
it's
like 5
great.
minutes.
It's great. No, I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. And man, listen, such wise words. And, for everybody listening, go join the Facebook group, No Fluff Marketing, for awakened entrepreneurs. And
Nothing
then
to do with coffee.
nothing to do with coffee, but caffeine will give you more energy to engage in those human relationships.
Absolutely.
I'm just practicing my wittiness and how quick I can respond for my future and never standing up on a stage and telling jokes.
Honestly, mate, it's a lost art for you.
I think what's funny is like probably the podcasts I listen to more than anything are comedian podcasts like Joe Rogan, Theo
Yeah.
Vaughn, like those
Yeah.
guys. Like I just love having humor in my life, and I love some of them. And so I'm
Yeah.
gonna make the world of like marketing comedy, right? Just fluff those
Yeah.
tools in.
Yeah, yeah, I love that.
Yeah, so everybody check it out. Thank you as always, Jonathan, for being here. I really
Pleasure.
do appreciate the down under approach to doing the same thing on the opposite end of the world and us, being able to drive with it. And so for everybody listening, human relationships, people add value, get deep, and do everything Jonathan said. And if it's go back and write down those questions for testimonials, whether it's like getting crystal clear on your intention, forgiving yourself, letting go of the insecurity, realizing that your gift is there to be shared, designing a customer journey, like it's loaded with nuggets. So I would pick one and I would go to town
Totally,
there.
man.
And so one last thing, any parting words, if you could leave anybody with anything, what would it be?
Oh, really, I need to get my coffee in now. Anyway, it's hitting 11:30 here in Auckland. So, my last word, just to really to add to layer to what you've actually just said so well, anyway, is stop thinking of yourself as B2B or B2C. Start thinking of yourself as H to H, human to human, and then watch the results.
Well, I'm not going to take away from that. Remember that everything is H to H or human to human. And so this will conclude another episode of My Mind Belongs in a Straitjacket on the Mind of George show with my good friend Jonathan. Make sure you check him out. And we will see you guys in the next episode. So time to cue the outro now. Cool, man.